Welcome back to this earwax removal. So this is part 2 of a 3-parter. So you can see here, this is the patient's other ear canal. Very similar story to the first one. Very easy to remove this piece of wax, so it's not quite as stuck to the canal walls as the first piece. So as we bring this out, you get this really big hard chunk of wax coming away here. Now when we take a look behind that, we'll see a much deeper section there. Now this is very dry, so I've popped a little bit of olive oil in here. Now olive oil is going to help to loosen this off the canal. It's going to help me to get a better grip. But what I'm noticing here is as I try and lift this deep-seated section of wax here, I can see it's very firmly attached to the canal wall. It looks almost as if there's a little bit of dry skin embedded in this as well, which would tally up with this particular patient's ear canal walls. But the difficulty here, if I keep trying to lift and push, I'm going to have to push this back to lift it off the canal wall. And this is already very close to the eardrum, so what we don't want to do is lift this too far back, and because it's quite hard, it's going to press against the drum, and that's going to be really uncomfortable for the patient. So we're going to go in with something called a Rosen insert, and we did do this in yesterday's video as well. So it's a very thin little hook that goes over the top of the wax and rolls this forwards. It's also going to take all that dry skin with it as well, because we're pulling towards, it'll peel that dry skin away. You can see it just popped off the canal wall there. So we'll go back in now with the suction tube and very gently just maneuver this down the canal. You can see those little bits of hair all sticking out around the edges as well. That's just holding it up, stopping it from coming out. There we go. You'll see the color of this is very dark. It's almost black in color. That means it's been in here a heck of a long time. So we'll take a look behind that. We'll see this little hair that's stuck on the eardrum. There's also a little patch of very dark wax sitting right on top of the eardrum here as well. So if you imagine this is secured on one side, so dried onto the eardrum on one side and dried onto the canal wall at the base as well. So it's holding, if you like, that eardrum in position, so restricting some of its movement, and that's going to cause this patient to feel their hearing has been reduced. So even though you've got that big plug out, sometimes little plugs like this, especially when they're deeper and sort of secured against that drum, can have far more of a sort of a detrimental effect to somebody's hearing. It's also attached to a little dry piece of skin that's sitting on the surface of the eardrum. So the left hand side you can see looks lovely and shiny once the suction tube moves out of the way, but the right hand side you can see where the watermark is there is quite dull. Now as we try and lift this out, you can see it's attached and secured somewhere, so we're going to keep trying to move this out and very slowly trying to work this down the canal. So don't forget guys, this is part 2 of a 3-parter, so please stay tuned.